Rudy. 今は私に任せてください。
Roxy! Yo! Okay. What a legendary episode of Mushoku Tensei. And as I was watching the ED, as one does after you've completed a legendary episode, I was thinking to myself, you know what? There's going to be a lot of people out there who take issue with this episode, you know, because people are weird, you know, on the internet especially. And I always ask myself the question of, like, I don't understand how some people watch shows that they have so many problems with or they get offended by. Like, why do you watch the show at all? You know what I mean? Like, there's so many people who will watch it and then go and, like, rant or vent or trying... I just get attention on the internet, and I'm always like, why do you... What's the point? Is it just the attention portion of it? Like, why push yourself through a show or something, like a premise? Like, even there's a lot of shows out there that I'm like, yeah, that's too borderline for me. I'm just not going to watch it. And... you know, there's been a few shows like that. I remember, like, there was, like, that World Ends Harem anime. I was like, oh, well, maybe. And then, like, maybe, like, 2 episodes in, I was like, ugh, like, this is just not for me. And I just stopped watching. I never posted about it. I never... nothing. Like, you know, I was like, I made a video and I said, like, hey, this just goes in a lot of different directions. It's just not for me. And that was, like, the last thing I posted about. And that's just because I'm a creator on YouTube. But I always find that interesting. Anyways, though. Episode 11, and this video is not about that. Episode 11 of Mushoku Tensei was just freaking legendary. If you have had the pleasure of joining me on this journey on the channel, whether it was for any of my Mushoku content or whatever it was, you know, or this is your first time, I'm a big Roxy stan. She is my favorite character in the show. I think Roxy is, like, peak. Like, she is just, like, the best. Out of the 3 girls, out of Eris, Sylphie, and Roxy. Roxy, to me, is number 1. It goes Roxy, Eris, Sylphie, in that order. Nothing I can do about it. Just is what it is. Roxy, though, like, her taking the initiative this episode was just so peak. It was just so good. Like, she saw an opportunity. She saw a door cracked open and she kicked that bitch down. Like, she just went in there and she just took over. And I was like, my girl, Roxy, let's freaking go. But this episode was just legendary. It's all about Roxy. That means, like, it's a 12 out of 10 for me. Like, it was just, like, absolutely amazing. But I'm going to kind of start backwards and I'll work my way kind of, like, I'll kind of skip around, work forward. But I want to talk about the end of the episode where Rudy's looking at Paul's sword, right? And there's no greater way to live out or continue living through, you know, your dad's, you know, in this case, Paul's legacy, and kind of following in the same footsteps. And, you know, who knew that Alina Lise was going to be the word of, like, solace, or like the wise man, or like the advice driven person, you know, telling Rudy, like, marry them, just marry Roxy, just marry both of them, just be married to both of them, make them happy. And she did something very smart. She was like, hey, did Zenith or did Lilia become unhappy when Paul married Lilia as well? Like, when he was married to both of them, were they both unhappy? And Rudy's, like, very, you know, he's very transparent. It's like, well, Zenith was a little bit at first, but she kind of eventually made peace with it. They had babies, they had kids, they had a family. They had kind of always been together and stuff. And in thinking of how they're going to move forward now, it's like, well, Sylphie, she's met Roxy before. She knew of her. She knows about Rudy's obsession with her. She knows about his grail, you know, that he has for her. He knows in what regards he holds his master in. So she's not ignorant to Rudy's feelings. And the very, very, very positive thing for Rudy is when Sylphie was talking to the princess before, she has already previously made peace with Rudy won't be a one-woman man. Now, based on his words, because he's kind of effed that up before and saying, like, no, it's just you. He may have put some additional ideas that she would be it for him, and she trusted him so much so. But I think that when it comes to Roxy specifically, and maybe if Eris ever shows up again down the line, the positive is Sophie has already made peace with, Rudy potentially having more than one woman. The other positive portion is she knows of Roxy, and she knows of Rudy's feelings towards Roxy. Whether it was in the past, current, whatever, she knows of her. So it's not like he met somebody brand new, in a sense, if that makes sense, and he's bringing her or that, imaginary person into their relationship or asking to bring them. He's bringing somebody that is a known quantity, much like when, if Eris ever comes back into the show, they hinted at it with Rudyard saying, hey, if she ever comes back, forgive her. They hinted at it. It's my guess that she's going to be back one day. Maybe she won't, but, if she ever comes back one day, again, she's also a known quantity. So it's not like some strange is coming in. So I think that's a very positive thing he has for us. So with Alina Elise, it's like, hey, love them both, carry Paul's legacy in this way. He can very much do it. And later on, at the, after that conversation, he did, and he did it in a very Rudy way. He very much stumbles with his words and stuff, and he basically said, hey, would you be willing to be Roxy Greyrat? That's what he got out. And she was like, oh my God, glossed over in the eyes. And she was like, you know what? When you talk to Sophie, when you ask her, ask me again. And I was like, that's the best answer that she could give, because she can't really say yes because he needs permission. You know what I mean? I totally get that. I think if anybody in the world, past, present, future, were to bring another person into their relationship, you would need to ask your spouse at that moment. And if you don't, you're a piece of shit. But you would need to go and ask your spouse, like, hey, what do you think about this? And convey your side to that thing. It's going to be a lot of convincing, but I think he can get Sophie there. So I love that. And, the future of Roxy Greyrat starts today. So I love that. Now let's work backwards a little bit. So the moment that they shared together was really bliss. Roxy came in and she allowed him, I was like, she is handling this like a pimp. She allowed him to vent, and, he talked about her parents, and you wouldn't understand. And he kind of went off a little bit on Roxy, but she had a one-track mind. She said, I'm going to go in there, I'm going to seduce the shit out of him, and I'm going to do my thing, and I'm going to make this man that I love feel better. So she didn't allow anything that he said to dissuade her from her goal. She saw the goalpost. She's like, I'm kicking that ball through that goalpost, nothing stopping me. So she allowed him to, vent and whatever, and he tried to get away from her, and she yanked him. She yanked that mother effer. She yanked him down. She got on top of him. She was like, excuse me. And she just took advantage of that moment. And, they wake up in the morning, and this is how this is a note for any studio out there. I think so many anime pussyfoot around romance and sex, honestly. And a lot of times I take really a lot of issue in that, because they always breed, those anime always end up breeding that virgin character who, like, the touch, and they're like, ah, and they run away and whatever. But this is how you deal with it tastefully, like, in a very, mature way. This is how you deal with it. Is like, we don't need to see anything that they actually do. It's, she pins him down, and, she starts taking advantage of the moment. They kiss a little bit, and then it cuts, it cuts to the window, and then it cuts back in the morning, and he's waking up next to her. Like, that's a very mature and tasteful way to handle sex in an anime. And I think more studios need to take note of how you do that, because it was tasteful. I wasn't disgusted. I wasn't like, oh, I can't believe they went there. Like, I wasn't taken away or taken aback. So I'm always very appreciative of how Mushoku handles this, handles this subject and everything. They did the same thing with Sophie. They did the same thing with Eris, earlier on. They always handle it in a very tasteful way, and this is how you do it. So I just wanted to give them their flowers there. Last thing I'll say, because I'm going to end up talking for like 20 minutes, is going before that. So I love that scene. I thought it was done very, very well. I love how Roxy put her feelings out there, talked about how, she loves Rudy. I love how she took advantage of the moment. I love that. Last thing I'll say is Rudy, the episode starting off with him thinking about his past parents and the mistakes that he made, I think should be nailed home for all of us. There's two main things. One was what Roxy said to Rudy is like, you can't change the past. You need to look forward. You can't change what you did or didn't do with your family that you had, but you can change your family today. Look forward. Love that lesson. Second thing, the show starting off, like I said, with him thinking about his past family and how he was just a piece of shit. He didn't bury his parents. He didn't see their dead faces. He didn't do the things that you should do as a child. He didn't do the things you should do as a kid. And I'll tell you, burying a parent is it's extremely hard, and it's very emotional, and there's a lot of things that go into it. But it is your duty as their kid. You know what I mean? It's your job. It's your duty. It is what you need to do because they have given you so much. You got to give back, and I love that that he's realizing that he was a piece of crap before. There's nothing you can do about that. There's nothing you can do about that. And he can only change now. He can't change back then. But he is asking the right questions. I wonder if how my parents were doing. I wonder what they were thinking. All these things that he could have taken advantage of if he wasn't so immature and so selfish back then that he could change now. Now, with the now, Paul's gone, but one thing he did realize is that he loved Paul and Paul loved him. And I think realizing that for himself is going to do amazing for his life. And Zenith, although she's a shell of herself, she's here. You have to do what you can, so wow, this is the longest video I've ever made. And there was so much else I wanted to say, but I don't want to make a 20-minute video that's as long as this show. Thank you so much for being with me this week. This episode was goated. This episode was legendary. This episode was legacy. This episode was Roxy. I'll see you guys next week for the next episode, as we'll see on how Rudy's conversation goes with Sophie. All right, my friends. One love. Peace out.